Bells are ringing, children are singing, as that Randall S., the unhinged attorney, Newman, Esquire, apparently has the channel information for Frauditor Troll. While he claims that he will not dox Troll with the information, he says he is filing a new amended complaint against Troll based on the information he received. Kevin, the angry vet SOPER, confronts a Maryland police officer at his home over a traffic incident. Screams when police show up to defuse the situation. Questions why anyone would be upset by an in-home confrontation. FLOYD WALLACE says crushing depression kept him from live streaming, but not from hooking up with 7 women in the 2 weeks he had been back in Colombia. Catch up with your favorite LOLCow in our coverage. Jeremiah Payne may actually have a case? Jeremiah Payne may actually have a case? That's not to be a typo. It's not? What? Lyft driver denies service due to a service dog? He may have a real lawsuit to file. Is this the end of times? Tell us, we can take it. Plus, Glenn Cerio returns with an encounter with cops that is so lifeless that I'm your humble newsreader, Pants. Please don't make me talk about Glenn Cerio before breakfast. We're back with you for a special morning edition of the one, the only, the depression-ridden, sex-crazed, lawsuit-inspired look into auditing insanity. Former YouTube superstar and auditor Glenn Cerio released a new video to his YouTube channel on Monday, showcasing a recent encounter he had with police in his old stomping ground of Everett, Washington. The video started with Cerio walking down a city street when he noticed a group of police on bicycles, apparently apprehending 2 men near some steps leading to a warehouse. After a brisk walk over, highlighted by Cerio's trademark huffing and puffing, he came to the scene as the bicycle-based police officers had handcuffed 2 men and were in the process of delivering them to police cars parked further down the street. When Cerio inquired, asking if it was a loitering arrest, the officer he talked to said something like that, and made small talk with the once great YouTube personality, as a 3rd man, apparently homeless, began to collect his things. The officer asked Cerio where he had been, and said that he had heard that Cerio had spent time in Florida. Cerio confirmed this and said that he had been all over the country in recent times, but had returned to the area recently. As the officer inquired if Cerio was now living in Everett, he got a "No, I'd never live in Everett." Cerio took a polite tone with the officer and appeared bored at what he was recording. The apparently homeless man quietly finished gathering his things and pulled a plastic utility wagon away from the scene, allowing Cerio the ability to move further down the street. As he passed, Cerio inquired if the man was smoking pot or just a regular cigar. The man replied that he was not smoking the devil's lettuce, but was smoking a cheap, delicious brand cigar before leaving the scene completely. Reapproaching the officers, Cerio inquired about an officer, Jacoby, who he said he heard had quit the police force. One of the officers confirmed that the officer had moved, but implied that he had transferred somewhere else. Cerio seemed pleased at the confirmation, quietly interacting with other police officers who said they knew him, but he did not recognize, before ending the live stream. The live stream continues a downward trend for Cerio, who was once the most ferocious First Amendment auditors on YouTube. The video has been seen 181 times, was liked 30 times, and received 3 comments since going live. That Randall S., the unhinged attorney, Newman, Esquire, made a stunning announcement on Tuesday as he claimed in a new video that YouTube had given him the actual information on the owner of Frauditor Troll's channel, but he would not be using it to dox the anti-auditing sensation. Frauditor Troll burst open the anti-auditing community in 2022 as a protege of Dr. Dave. After splitting with Dr. Dave, he went on to establish himself as the leading voice of the anti-auditing community, openly willing to go after big-name auditors and showing no fear when facing the repercussions of his exposés. With a fiercely guarded secret identity, rumors floated for years that he was a Canadian national, though his real name and identity were still closely guarded. So much so that fans, even after his recent face reveal and confirmation that he was a Canadian national, have been fervently protective of his name and identity in fear that First Amendment auditors would cause harm to him or his family if his true information came out. The belief that Troll's identity must be protected at all costs was so fervent that when Newman filed his initial lawsuit against Frauditor Troll, he was accused of doxing Troll by listing the name and address provided in Troll's DMCA counterclaims in the lawsuit against Troll. Something that was part of the public record as soon as a lawsuit was filed. In the months since filing the lawsuit, and despite claims that both the name and the address provided were fake, supporters of Frauditor Troll and other members of the anti-auditing community have clung to the belief that Newman is simply out to dox them on behalf of his clients, rather than to fight to defend their copyrighted materials. Attorney Patrick Darcy's failed attempt to file an amicus curiae brief in Christopher Cordova's lawsuit against Frauditor Troll addressed the issue and beliefs that Newman would use information from his lawsuits to dox individuals. Quote, "In what is roughly akin to giving an arsonist a fresh supply of matches, Newman created a video that instructs the auditors how to unmask the anti-auditors. The video is entitled, 'Nice Anonymous Channel, Be a Shame If Someone Filed a 512H Subpoena.' Newman instructs his target audience of auditors how to unmask anonymous YouTube users who steal content. No lawsuit required, just a $52 filing fee. No more hiding. His warning about not using the subpoena to dox persons is meaningless. Darcy's declaration provides some examples of auditors trying to unmask the anti-auditors, and some auditors encourage their viewers to harass and stalk people. This video should be taken down. Craig Hendry, an auditor doing time for a felony stalking charge, was convicted for having subscribers harass city employees. Cordova, while on probation, is doxing the police by providing their names, badge numbers, email addresses, and even cell phone numbers, all of which qualifies as personally identifiable information. Newman's video is reckless and serves to intensify the infighting, including motions to quash and more litigation, all of which serves his interests. His warnings not to dox people are born of pure sophistry." Unquote. Newman addressed these beliefs in both his Tuesday morning video and in comments he's made since his initial filing in the Frauditor Troll case. "This is a big moment for accountability," Newman said in a comment to ReallyCoolNews. "The court granted us early discovery, Google complied without a fight, and now we know exactly who is behind the Frauditor Troll channel. For too long, these reaction creators have hidden behind fake names while profiting off other people's work and harassing the very creators they exploit. That ends here. I'm working on an amended complaint that adds new claims based on what we've uncovered. This isn't about revenge, it's about enforcing the law and setting a precedent that fair use isn't a free pass to steal someone's content wholesale. The next filing will make that very clear." Newman added a new lawsuit to his growing collection of copyright-related suits late Sunday night, this time featuring Christopher Denver Metro Audits Cordova's Executive Lens LLC, facing off against the YouTuber known as Frauditor Roundup and his or her attorney, Robert Allen Reed. If the names sound familiar, they should be, as Newman brought a similar lawsuit on behalf of Zachary Liberty Troll Cooker against the same pair last week. The lawsuits revolve around claims of misrepresentation and declaration of copyright infringement. Both lawsuits essentially state that Reed used boilerplate DMCA counter notices on behalf of his client and did not examine the videos at hand when claiming that all the material presented was fair use under penalty of perjury. The lawsuits claim that Reed, working on behalf of Frauditor Roundup, knowingly certified a fabricated legal standard in order to misrepresent the contents of the videos. The misrepresentation, according to the lawsuits, was part of a coordinated scheme to preserve monetized infringing content. Neither Reed nor Frauditor Roundup have made a public comment to address either lawsuit. Ever entertaining YouTube personality Kevin the Angry Vet Soper clashed with a member of the Hartford County Sheriff's Department on Tuesday as he confronted a Hartford County, Maryland police deputy at the deputy's home after allegedly being sped by his truck at a high rate of speed without his lights or sirens on. Soper immediately followed in the general direction of the police cruiser and estimated where it was located, eventually finding a Hartford County police vehicle parked outside of a residence. The angry vet drove up to the property, and he promptly went to the front door. He said he rang the doorbell and no one answered, but he could hear two men talking. He then knocked on the door, triggering a dog to bark, and a man in a blue striped flag t-shirt eventually came to the door. When Soper inquired about the vehicle and if it was the one that had passed him at a high rate of speed, the apparent officer said that he had been in that area and had just rushed home to get changed to respond to a call where an officer was struck and injured in a traffic accident. Soper insisted that the officer went into tyrant mode as he continued to confront the officer at his own home, asking where the incident happened. Soper said that the deputy must be more considerate the next time he was driving at such a high rate of speed without his lights and sirens. The officer asked Soper to leave his property. As Soper was backing up, a second, larger man came out of the basement to confront him. Soper would later mockingly speculate that the two men were lovers, but held his tongue unseen. The man saw Soper walking backwards off of the property when the original officer, now identified as Deputy Burns, to the man to leave it alone. Soper and the man screamed at each other until Soper returned to his truck. An unmarked police vehicle would arrive on the scene with lights and sirens blaring. Soper apparently decided to retreat from the scene at that point, with no further interactions with the officers. Soon after, the second man drove a vehicle in front of Soper's truck and stopped to take pictures of it. When the man inquired who Soper was, Soper responded with, "You'll soon find out." After leaving the scene, Soper went to a local park where he began to live stream. No footage of the incident apparently exists, but Soper originally claimed he was going directly to the Hartford County Sheriff's Office to make a complaint about Officer Brown. Soper eventually talked himself out of going to the sheriff's office, stating that he would confront police in the morning, but wanted backup as he was fearful of going on his own. As the angry vet was insistent on using the live stream to document his safe journey home, he kept the stream going as he drove, only to have it cut off while some distance from his house. This incident follows a clash Soper had with his own moderation team on Monday, declaring in a new live stream that if they want to continue to moderate for him, they'd need to have to further promote him and commit to his ideals on social media. Soper, sitting in the backyard of his Maryland home and playing with his cat at times through the live stream, told his moderators, especially if they had channels of their own, were responsible for promoting his ideology outside of his channel. Addressing the moderators directly, he said they were required to show the up and that they should have a thing on their phone with all his channel and nonprofit links to distribute to social media and other sites. He added that his moderation team must all be members of his channel, as he intended to pivot to members-only live streams. For those who couldn't afford membership, he said he would be offering them memberships directly. Soper would add that as moderators, they should expect to be paid for their work, and told the group to send him their Cash App information. It is unclear how Soper will manage to pay his moderators as of press time. Jeremiah Payne's dramatic summer continued this week as he released footage on Tuesday of what he claimed to be an incident of racism, where a black Lyft driver refused to accept Payne and his family as passengers, as they had not disclosed they were taking a dog with them on the ride. The video began with Payne already confronting the Lyft driver, who was out of his vehicle. Payne was screaming at the man, and the man responded that he was not obligated to take the dog in his car, as it was his personal vehicle. Samantha Payne interjected that the dog, Skittles, was a service animal, and that he was required to take him on the ride. The man objected to this, and Jeremiah Payne began to shout at the man that he needed to quit Lyft if he would not follow the company's guidelines, or federal or state law. Jeremiah Payne jumped directly to accusing the man of being a racist, and said that he was using any excuse to deny a white family a ride. The man screamed back at Jeremiah that he was half white. Payne escalated things further, and the man got into his face, with both men daring each other to make the first move. As the man was now standing in Payne's yard, he demanded that the man leave his property. The man responded by asking why Payne was shaking, and Payne said that he was always shaking, and that gay mother like that, don't they? The man began to retreat, and there was a jump cut to a Clarksville, Tennessee police vehicle arriving on scene. Text appeared at that point which read, So the Clarksville tyrants show up and try to say I was the one at flout, even though he wanted to fight over a Cerio dog and stepped in my yard at me. Watch the police say I'm at flout. Payne would later explain to the officer that his dog, Skittles, was actually his wife's service animal, and that her insurance ordered a Lyft medical ride on her behalf to take her to the doctor. It should be noted that in the few appearances of Skittles on Payne's channel, no member of the Payne family has ever described Skittles as a service dog. Furthermore, Skittles is usually seated in a wagon and had never been shown acting as a service dog. The female officer asked if Payne had recorded the incident. Payne said he had a few seconds of it, and a partial replay of the verbal altercation was shown. Following a jump cut, the officer is shown walking back to her vehicle with new text displayed on the screen reading, "She said I was at fault, not the asshole who jumped out of his car and wanted to fight. And proof police don't give a shit. If you record them, they rather you get killed than do their job." Payne flipped the officer off as she drove off, saying that he wished all Clarksville police officers would have a bad day. After another jump cut, Payne would attempt to explain the situation. He said that the driver was in the wrong, as the driver does not have the right by both federal and state law to deny the ride based on the dog. He said that the nosy-assed neighbors called the police while the Lyft driver was present, and that they wanted to see him get killed by Clarksville police. He also claimed that he had multiple cameras around his home that recorded unspecified black people expressing racist comments towards white people. Digging deeper, he said that white people are never racist against black people, but black people are always racist against white people. He said that since the police officer was black and the Lyft driver was black, the officer would never side with him as a white person. Payne continued to rant about the incident, claiming that the racist cop was in the wrong and that he would be suing the police officer for dereliction of duty. He told all the members to kiss my mother ass before saying you all and ending the video. If the Lyft driver indeed denied the ride because of the presence of a service animal, it may be one of the few times where Payne actually has a legitimate lawsuit. According to Lyft's policies, drivers should not deny service animals, as it is a violation of federal law to refuse service based on the presence of a service animal. Their guidelines state, if a driver refuses a rider with a service animal, the driver could face immediate and permanent deactivation if an investigation into the alleged denial verifies a wrongful denial. However, drivers can question riders as to whether or not their animals are actual service animals. Again, according to Lyft's guidelines, they're allowed to ask the following questions. 1, is the animal required because of a disability? And 2, what work or task has the animal been trained to perform? The guidelines also state some passengers use service animals for reasons that aren't obvious, like epilepsy or heart conditions. Not all service animals wear tags, and they come in all shapes and sizes. For these reasons, it's best that you accommodate animals when they're reported to you by riders as being service animals. It's unclear from the clips shown in Payne's video if the driver expressed these concerns or followed Lyft's policies in dealing with the Payne family's insistence that Skittles was a service animal. After weeks of speculation as to what happened to world-renowned passport bro FLOYD WALLACE, the YouTuber made a surprise appearance on a 5-hour live stream on his foreign-only YouTube channel Tuesday afternoon. The YouTuber started the stream by claiming that he had been fighting severe depression that had prevented him from going live on YouTube. He indicated that his depression was cured by the need to increase the revenue from his channels, as he received his lowest paycheck from Google YouTube last week, barely making $700 in revenue from his multiple YouTube channels. Wallace started with the cliffhanger he left off on when he disappeared earlier in the summer. He confirmed he was in Colombia and had been in the country for 2 weeks and had missed the birth of a baby a former hookup said was his son. He said that the mother of the child had agreed to bring the child in for a DNA test after he returned to the United States, with his current return scheduled for September 10th, 2025. Because he did not know if he was the baby's father, he said he refused to interact with the child and said that from the pictures he's seen, the baby may have shared his nose, but no other features. Wallace said that the baby's mother was from Sudan and that she was not a United States citizen, though she had been living in the United States for some time. He said that the condom broke during one of their hookups late last year, and that instead of he inside of her despite the risks of pregnancy. The YouTuber would admit that from the paperwork presented to him of her medical bills and test results, there was a significant chance that he was the baby's father. He had his doubts, however, and said he would be extremely disappointed if the DNA tests indicated that he was the father. Wallace went on to threaten the woman, stating that if she went for child support, he would never contribute any more money than what was required by law towards the baby. He also said he did not want to be ordered to pay child support because if he missed a payment, his passport could be revoked. When later asked by a panel member what he planned to do if he was the father, Wallace said that he would have to get a factory job and would not be a deadbeat dad. He indicated that he would work in a meat packing plant if needed, and that despite any income he may make, the potential mother of his child would only receive a maximum of $200 a month from him. The YouTuber again noted that the woman was not a United States citizen and laughed at a joke by someone in his side chat that he should report the woman and have her deported. He said he would not consider that just in case the child was his. Wallace, now in Colombia for a few weeks, said that he was beginning to get homesick despite having no real plans in America. He claimed that Colombia had terrible food, but it was the best place to hook up with women, though anyone who hooked up with a Colombian woman would have to pay for it. Bragging that he had hooked up with 7 women during his current stay in the country, he explained that he would never give a date cash in exchange for sex. He instead bought the women outfits, paid their bills, or bought them meals as incentive to have intercourse with him. The issue of an incident between fellow passport bro Jay Rillo, who is currently going by the name Scott Ensley on Twitter, and a prostitute became a recurring theme during the nearly 7-hour-long live stream. Jay Rillo currently fundraises for his travels, much like Wallace. However, he pays for sexual encounters with prostitutes, which he then streams on his Twitter channel. While the participants are typically under a blanket during the sexual encounters, Twitter does not intervene in the broadcasts. In a recent incident, Jay Rillo initiated intercourse with a prostitute in Kenya that he had paid for at a brothel. He paid the brothel for the woman's services and took her back to his hotel. While filming the encounter, the woman refused to have sex with him. With the camera obscured, Jay Rello can be heard screaming at the woman, and the sound of a slap or punch can be heard during the video. Since the incident, Jay Rello has been blasted by critics and received threats as he fundraised for enough money to leave Nairobi, Kenya. Wallace originally sided with Jay Rello, claiming to have talked with the YouTuber, but had not seen the video. Wallace said that if he was in the same situation and could not get a refund from the prostitute, he would have turned the camera off, had sex with the woman anyway, and then returned her to the brothel. He then provided updates on the situation that lured him to Colombia, the possibility of hooking up with a married lesbian couple who wanted a man to participate in various videotaped sexual activities. The YouTuber said that he hooked up with the women a few times, but that they were boring and weren't what he was expecting sexually. He stopped regularly seeing them as they refused to appear on his live streams. The sex-obsessed YouTuber would later open a panel and is currently in hour 7 of the broadcast as of press time. During the panel session, Wallace mentioned the need to crowdsource for possible visits to Africa and Asia. If Wallace follows through on the idea, he may be entering at the worst possible time, as recession fears have apparently kept donations tight with the crowdsource campaigns that we follow. No campaigns received donations for Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, including our own ongoing expenses campaign. If you would like to help contribute to us eating, keeping the lights on, and feeding cats, please think about contributing to our GoFundMe campaign or other donation links. Also note that after a week of goose eggs in the market, writer of things Jim Finch will no longer be obligated to report on the crowdsourcing market and will be freed from his near-eternal curse. You can assure a future of reports by a single donation to our campaign, or not. Thank you from the management. We need your help. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, feeding the cats, defending ourselves from lawsuit threats, and writing news stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, you can do so via a donation to our PayPal, Cash App, or GoFundMe accounts. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch our videos from beginning to end, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.